Okay. Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone here at the temple and those of you watching via Zoom to our Sunday service. Also, a special welcome to those of you joining us for the first time. We will begin our service with the ringing of the kancho, followed by the chanting of Jusege. If you would like to follow along in the purple service book, turn to page 93.
少女三組名交際主役難回避地営限滅し根本案閉塞小悪の中断全種門高層上満足いよろ実法日願主樹期天候無限一種解放像公正特法上王大集中説法ししく供養一切物具足種特本元年心情満特異三害を女分無下地津田未不詳願学エリ都市最小村志願や国家大戦王冠の国書天に高知名家ナマンダバナマンダバナマンダバナマンダバナマンダバナマンダバアネシカドク平等スイサイ道本も大心往生安楽公ナマンダツナマンダナマンダナマンダナマンダツナマンダナマンダナマンダナマンダツナマンダナマンダ
We will now have the reading of Three Treasures and Sankyemon.
I invite you to join me with hands together, gasho, as we recite together the three treasures. Hard is it to receive a human form. Now we have received it. Difficult is it to hear the Buddha Dharma. Now we hear it. If we do not receive awakening in this life, in what life shall we do so? Let us reverently take refuge together in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. Together with all beings, may we attain the great way of enlightenment, awakening to the supreme intent of the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. Together with all beings, may we enter the storehouse of Dharma, acquiring wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. Together with all beings, may we become united at the great assembly, being free of all bondage. Hard is it to encounter the supreme, profound, and wondrous Dharma, even in 100,000 million kalpas. We are now able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true intent of the Tathagata. Sankyemon. Ninjin ukegatashi imasure ni uku. Buppo kikigatashi imasure ni kiku. Konomi konjo ni mukatte dosezun ba, sarani izure no shou ni mukatte ka konomi o dosen. Daishu moro tomo ni shishin ni sanbo ni kieshi tate matsuru beshi. Mizu kara butsu ni kieshi tate matsuru. Masa ni negawaku wa shujo to tomo ni daido o taige shite mujoi o okosan. Mizu kara ho ni kieshi tate matsuru. Masa ni negawaku wa shujo to tomo ni深く教蔵に入りて知恵海のごとくならん。自らそうに消えし立て祭る。まさに願わくは衆生と共に大衆を通りして一切無限ならん。無常人事未明の法は百千万語にもあようことかたし。我今検問し従事することを得たり。願わくは如来の真実義を下し立てまつらん。ナマンダブツ、ナマンダブツ、ナマンダブ、ナマンダブツ、ナマンダブ、ナマンダブツ、ナマンダブ、ナマンダブツ。ナマンダブツ、ナマンダブ、ナマンダブツ。
Reverend Umezu will now deliver her Dharma message.
I invite everyone to put their hands together as I read a passage written by the founder of our tradition, Venerable Shinran. People with extremely heavy karma should recite only the Buddha's name. Even though I am within Buddha's embrace, I cannot see it due to the obstruction of my afflictions. Even so, Amida's great compassion tirelessly shines upon me, Namandab, namandab, namandab. Well, good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Good? Great. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us in person and on Zoom to listen to the Buddha Dharma Nembutsu teaching today. For anybody joining us for the first time in person or in Zoom, thank you so much for coming. Welcome to our temple, and we're very happy to have you here. The passage that I just shared was written by our tradition's founder, as I mentioned, Venerable Shinran. It is one stanza in his composition called Shoshin Nembutsuge, or Verses on the True and Trusting of Nembutsu. In this stanza, he is quoting another Buddhist master named Genshin, who described his own appreciation of Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. Genshin expressed that although he knew he was within Amida Buddha's compassion, his afflictions of ignorance and 3 poisons often blocked his view of being able to recognize it. Even though this was the case, Amida Buddha's compassion never stops embracing him. Because he was this type of person, he saw himself as someone with heavy karma and knew that his only chance for spiritual liberation from his heavy karma was to recite Namo Amida Butsu, to take refuge and entrust in the Buddha of immeasurable wisdom and compassion. In previous talks, I have shared what we should be listening for, which is the teaching of how Amida Buddha is constantly trying to reach out to each and every one of us to not just embrace us, but embrace us out of this deep wish for each of us to transcend our suffering. I've also shared how we should listen, and that is to listen wholeheartedly, to bring our whole selves to listen. But even though we may know what we should be listening for, and maybe and even if we know the attitude we should bring when we listen, sometimes it's just very difficult to hear what we're supposed to hear. I would like to share one of my favorite jokes. It's kind of a cheesy joke that I've heard, and perhaps you're familiar with it. There was a husband once who began wondering if his wife had a hearing problem as they were struggling to communicate. He would call out to her and she wouldn't answer. Sylvia's laughing. So one day, he decided to put this all to a test. So while his wife was sitting down watching television, he started far away and he decided, I'm going to call out to her, and slowly get closer and closer and closer to her. So he would say, hey, honey, can you hear me? No answer. So he would walk a little closer. Hey, honey, can you hear me? No answer. So he would walk a little closer. Hey, can you hear me? And he would get slowly louder every time he got closer. The wife didn't even flinch. Finally, he moved right behind his wife, and he yelled at her, hey, can you hear me? And she turned around, and she said, for the 3rd time, yes, I can hear you. So one of the reasons that I really like this joke is because it reminds me about how how I am very good at seeing the faults of others, but not seeing the faults in myself. As we are taught by Buddha, and as we were reminded by Furumoto Sensei last week, if you were able to attend, the reason that we blame others and not ourselves is because we have a very deep, self-serving ignorance and 3 poisons within us. Our ignorance and our 3 poisons makes it very easy for us to hear only what we want to hear and see only what we want to see. If we encounter something that makes us feel good, we want more of it. If we encounter something that makes us feel bad, we want to stay far away from it and we ignore it. So if we are faced with information about ourselves that makes us feel uncomfortable and feel bad about ourselves, we easily ignore it. We don't want to hear it. It doesn't matter if it's true. We don't want to hear it. We don't want to acknowledge it. Isn't even hearing this kind of truth hard to hear? We might even think, oh yeah, you know what? That's my friend's problem, or that's my relative's problem. They should come here and listen. That's not my problem, though. But actually, what Buddha is trying to get us to see is, no, it is my problem. Not being open to hearing something is not limited to what we are hearing, but also we put this attitude on who we are hearing it from, how we hear it, and when we hear it. If someone we don't trust, or we just don't feel like hearing advice from them, is trying to give us advice that we don't want to hear, then we just won't listen. We don't want to think, I could be wrong and they could be right. We never want to think that we are wrong. Even if it is someone that we trust, trying to give us advice about ourselves, if it is said in a way or a tone that we don't like, then we won't listen. Have you ever heard the phrase, it's not what you say, but how you say it? Yeah. So if advice is given to us using words that we don't relate to, or we don't like the tone, we won't listen. And also, if this advice or information is given to us at an inconvenient time of our lives, then we won't be open to hearing it or listening to it, or we cannot hear it. So last time I spoke also, I talked about how I was warned by my parents over and over throughout my life not to overeat, because if I overeat, I will get sick. And I've often not want to listen to them because I thought I knew myself better than they knew me. And I always felt like they were just nagging me. But, even as I got older, I knew in the back of my mind that their words were true. But often when I'm eating really good food, it's too much of an inconvenience to be told not to overeat because I'm enjoying my food too much. Just as in my experience of my parents trying to help me, in all of these examples of who we are receiving advice or guidance from, how we receive it, and the timing, it doesn't only relate to whether or not we believe in what is being said to us, but it relates to our own inability and unwillingness to hear and accept something based on my own self-serving three poisons and ignorance. Even if it is me who cannot receive the message due to my own boundaries and barriers that I'm putting up due to my afflictions, I still want to blame the message or the messenger. Amida Buddha thoroughly knows this about us, which is why, as Master Genshin expressed, Amida's great compassion tirelessly shines upon me. When we cannot hear or do not want to hear due to our deep-rooted afflictions, and when I say here, I mean the Buddha Dharma, Buddha's calling of Namo Amida Butsu, please take refuge in my wisdom and compassion. Namo Amida Butsu is never ceasing to reach out to us. This plea, this urge from Buddha is never ceasing to reach out to us. This is the working of the great compassion of Amida Buddha. If it were me trying to get someone's attention and give them guidance or helpful advice, and they didn't want to listen, after a while that I keep trying, and maybe you would be like this too, I would get frustrated and I would say, oh, forget it. Figure it out on your own. I was just trying to help you. But Amida Buddha does not do this to any of us. Amida Buddha does not turn its back on any of us. Instead, Amida Buddha patiently continues to reach out to us. I'm here waiting for you to take refuge in my wisdom and compassion. Please rely on me. When we can and when we do open ourselves up to hearing Namo Amida Butsu, we may question aspects about the teaching that we hear because maybe they seem too good to be true. We may doubt it or have suspicion about it because it doesn't make logical sense to us. As adults, in general, giving guidance or advice to children. I think a lot of what we're passing on as adults is the wisdom of life that we have acquired through our experience. And we wish for children to benefit from our experiences. But oftentimes, and I think if you remember back to when you were a child yourself, children don't want to listen to adults. As children, we think, oh, I can figure it out on my own. Adults don't know what they're talking about. And, or maybe, that what the information or wisdom that's being passed on just doesn't make any sense to the child. They cannot process it. So they ignore it. The sutra tells us that Dharmakara practiced for innumerable eons. How much experience do you think Dharmakara as a Buddha has racked up over innumerable eons? I would say an inconceivable amount, an amount of wisdom that we can't even imagine. As we know, it was enough to fulfill the Bodhisattva's aspiration to become an unhindered Buddha. That is Dharma, wisdom, and compassion itself. In the same way that we might try to pass on our wisdom and what we've learned to children, just like my parents were trying to pass on the wisdom, like don't overeat or else you'll get sick. For us, we are just like children in the eyes of Amida Buddha. Amida Buddha's wisdom is often transcendent to our limited abilities. And we tend to dismiss it just because we cannot understand it, or I think I know better than Buddha. Out of my arrogance that arises due to ignorance and three poisons, we say things like, when we hear, Buddhist scriptures or whatnot, oh, that's just the way ancient people thought. We know better now because we know science. Or we might hear some people say, Buddhism is about logic. It's not about spiritual blind faith, so that sounds too mystic, so that can't be Buddhism. Let's just disregard that aspect of the teaching. We dismiss Buddha's wisdom and compassion when it does not fit into our limited worldview. But this is precisely why Amida Buddha is reaching out to us and saying, I know that you cannot see the big picture like I can. This is why I'm urging you to rely on wisdom and compassion for your own well-being now and in the future. But as Shakyamuni Buddha clarified at the end of the Sutra of Immeasurable Life, the most difficult of all difficulties is to hear this sutra and accept it with an entrusting heart. Nothing surpasses this difficulty. I have presented the Dharma, thus preached it, and thus taught it. You should accept it in trust and practice in accord with it. In this same way, Venerable Shinran also wrote in the Shoshinge, for those evil beings of perverted views and arrogance, the Nembutsu of Amida's fundamental vow is extremely difficult to trust and accept. Nothing exceeds this difficulty. In other words, entrusting in Namo Amida Butsu is complicated by our own arrogance, out of our ignorance and three poisons. We are the thing standing in our own way from receiving Buddha's wisdom and compassion. The reason I cannot hear it is because of myself. Again, it is because Amida Buddha knows the way that we are, that Amida Buddha's light of wisdom never stops shining on us. Buddha never stops reaching out to us. It is we who are the husband in the joke who cannot hear his wife calling out. I have often heard the question, Jodo Shinshu is called the easy practice, right? So if it is supposed to be so easy, why is it so difficult? To paraphrase Genshin, even though I am within Buddha's embrace, I am the one who cannot see due to the obstruction of my afflictions. All we have to do is entrust ourselves, but our false sense of self is so strong and so arrogant that it is extremely difficult for us to humble ourselves and entrust ourselves to something, especially if we cannot fully, logically understand it on our terms. Paradoxically and inconceivably, Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion is what allows me to realize my arrogance. And it moves me to rely on its wisdom and compassion. So let us continue to listen to Namo Amida Butsu, not just with our physical ears, but also with our spiritual ears, eyes, and heart. And remember that Amida Buddha's light of wisdom is always compassionately illuminating our lives, reminding us of our arrogance, our afflictions, and limitations that we impose on ourselves, making our lives difficult for ourselves. During the moments that we realize our afflictions are deep and heavy, getting in the way of us hearing the Dharma, let us recite Namo Amida Butsu to remember that Amida Buddha's vow never stops embracing any of us. Let us do our best to continue wholeheartedly to listen to the wisdom and compassion of truth and reality that never stops supporting us. This is the great compassion of Amida Buddha. And for receiving this profound gift of wisdom and compassion, let us humbly respond to Buddha by saying, "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for accepting me as I am. Thank you for being patient with me. I will rely on your wisdom and compassion. Namo Amida Butsu." Thank you very much, all of you, for being here today and listening to the Nembutsu at the West Los Angeles Buddhist Temple. In closing, I would like to do a reading of a letter written by Master Renyo. I invite you to put your hands together as I read this letter. Lay people in the latter age who lack wisdom should deeply rely on Amida Buddha with singleness of heart, entrusting themselves to the Buddha wholeheartedly and unwaveringly for their emancipation, without turning their thoughts to other matters. However deep and heavy their evil karma may be, Amida Tathagata unfailingly saves them. This is the essence of the 18th vow that assures our birth in the Pure Land through the Nembutsu. Once our heart is thus settled, we should say the Nembutsu whether awake or asleep for as long as we live. Humbly and respectfully. Matundai muchi no zaige shinjum no nanyo taran tomogara wa kokoro itotsu ni shite Amida Buddha kaku tanomi mairasete さらに世の方へ心を振らず、一心にこにぶ助けたまえともさん、主情ば。たとえ在後は人獣なりとも、必ず皆如来は救いましますべし。これすなわち第18の念の上の世がの心なり。核のごとく賢女しての上には寝ても覚めても命のあらん限りは。称名念仏すべき。ものなりあなかしこあなかしこナマンダブツナマンダブナマンダブツナマンダブナマンダブツナマンダブナマンダブツナマンナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブ
Thank you, Reverend Umezu, for your Dharma message. We will now have the reading of Ryogemon.
I once again invite you all to put your hands together as we read Ryogemon, Words of Understanding of Our Tradition, written by Master Renyo. We rely upon Amida Buddha with our whole heart for the enlightenment in the life to come, abstaining from all sundry practices and teachings, and giving up the trust in our imperfect view. There is no doubt that the assurance of enlightenment the very moment we entrust and we recite the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu, in joy and gratitude for the Buddha's compassion. We also acknowledge gratefully the benign benevolence of our founder and succeeding masters who have led us to live in this profound teaching, and we do now endeavor to follow throughout our lives the way laid down for us. Ryoge Shutsugon. Moro moro no zogyo zashu jiriki no kokoro o furistete, isshin ni amida nyorai, warera ga kondo no ichidaiji no gosho, on tasuke sorai to tanomi moshite soro. Tanomu ichinen no toki, ojo ichijo on tasuke jijo tozonji. この上の称名はご恩報者と存じ喜び申し候。この恩断り弔問申し分け候こと、ご解散承認ご出世のご恩、次第相乗の前時式の朝からざるご関係のご恩と、ありがたく存じ候。この上は定めを課せられる恩をきて、一語限り守り申すべく候。ナマンダブツナマンダブナマンダブツナマンダブナマンダブツナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブツナマンダブナマンダブ。
All right, we have some announcements. Next Sunday, there will not be a service. The temple will be closed for Thanksgiving, but happy Thanksgiving to everybody. After this service today, there will be a family movie matinee that will begin shortly after this service ends, and then it'll be followed by a short Dharma discussion about the film. The next service will be on December 3rd. It will also be a Dharma Kids Day, and there will be a Dharma reflection session after the service. Some other announcements are we have on December 10th at 10 a.m. a guest speaker, Reverend Vaughn Magnan, and this will be for our Bodhi Day Dharma service. Every year, the temple has a cleanup, year-end general cleanup, and that will be on December 17th at 9 a.m. If you can come out to help, that would be wonderful. At the end of the year, on December 31st at 6 p.m., there will be a New Year's Eve Dharma service, and it will involve ringing of the Kansho bell. The following day, which will be New Year's Day, there will be another Dharma service open to the public at 10 a.m. On December 3rd, there will be the monthly Dharma School. Today is a Sunday matinee, and then the next one after today will be on December 10th. The temple will have its annual Mochitsuki on Saturday, December 16th. And if you would like to help, let the temple know. You can sign up to help. It's really a very fun event. And if you would like to order mochi, please get your order in by November 26th. There's bingo at the temple every third Friday of the month, starting at 7 p.m. And also, we have T-shirts. Our West LA temple T-shirts are right here for $20. And this is the last announcement. I think this is the way our Nokotsudo will look when it is installed. All right, so This concludes our service for today. Thank you all for attending, and we hope to see you on December 3rd. Take care. Sensei?
Please join me, Gasho. We recite Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Dao, Namo Dao, Namo Dao, Namo Dao, Namo Dao, Namo Dao.